We move into worship again this afternoon, which will be led by Niki Andre again. And I invite Niki to unmute yourself and turn on your video. And welcome back. It's good to have you. And we look forward to our worship this afternoon. And so I'll pass it on to you, Niki.
Okay, so before we get started, well, first of all, hello everyone. Hello again. Before we get started, I'm going to invite us all to take some time to get settled and comfortable once more. So shut any unnecessary windows on your computer or your device. Turn off your phone. Shut the door if possible. Take a moment to remember we are in bodies. Sit up straight. Feel your sit bones making firm contact with the seat beneath you. Reach down towards the earth through the building floorboards. And if your feet are touching the ground, make sure they are firmly planted. Now let's take a few breaths together. On your next inhale, let your spine become nice and long, and on an exhale, shoulders move back and down. Chin parallel with the ground, ears balanced over shoulders, shoulders balanced over hips, and if your feet are on the ground, knees balanced over ankles. Take a moment to notice your breathing. Feel your belly rise and fall with each inhale and exhale. Notice how your chest subtly expands and contracts as you breathe in and out. Even your arms and legs are almost imperceptibly lengthening and contracting with your breath. Let your breath breathe you. In your own time and at your own pace, take 3 breaths here to come into your body, this moment, settling into this place and time. Gaze softens or close your eyes as you are comfortable, as your mind gently opens to take in these words. Holy Spirit, known to us by many names and beyond all naming, may the words on my lips and the meditations in all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God. Walk with me now. Trace the footsteps of our ancestors backwards in time. And back further still, you are divining water in your ancestors' native lands, looking for the spring. Hear it trickling in the distance. Now you see it, how the spring flows to a tiny stream, winding. As the stream grows to surging river, follow. Feel its spray on your hands and feet and face. At the waterfall where your tributary rushes on beyond your people's lands, kneel, cup your hands, and drink. What do you taste? You know this cascading river is just one of many in a vast watershed in the distance. You can smell the body of water into which all empty. Breathe it in. Transported, you are now standing on its shores beneath a mighty oak. Take it all in. Get in. Get wet. Immerse. Wade. Dive. Dip as you are able. Soak in this commingling of rivers as these words seep into your skin. We are in this together. At a time when humankind faces existential crises on seemingly every front, social structures crumbling, economies strangling, violence rising, governments shutting out and down, environmental fever soaring, the health of Earth's inhabitants in decline, poisoned water, food, and air, though we bicker on Facebook in our curated streams. We are in this together. Divided, we are falling. I am because you are. Oak trees. Naima Penniman, an activist, artist, grower with soul fire and wild seed farms, thinks we can learn a lot from oaks. When Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf, she says, almost everything lost its footing. Houses were detached from their foundations, trees and shrubbery were uprooted, signposts and vehicles floated down the rivers that became the streets. But amidst the whipping winds and surging water, the oak tree held its ground. How? Instead of digging its roots deep and solitary into the earth, the oak tree grows its roots wide and interlocks with other oaks. And you can't bring down 100 oak trees bound beneath the soil. How do we survive the unnatural disasters of climate change, environmental injustice, over-policing, mass imprisonment, militarization, economic inequality, corporate globalization, and displacement? We must connect in the underground, my people. In this way, we shall survive. I agree with Naima. We, like those oak trees, should be tapping our roots deep and wide, pumping our gifts back into our common ground, like plants give back to the soil, weaving together, collectively securing ourselves, readying ourselves, protecting each other from the ineludible storms. But there are so many noisy, nagging wounds and traumas, disappointments and frustrations on all sides with our imperfections and the imperfections of our fellow humans and this imperfect society we've created together. So many knots in our stomachs, clenched fists and muscles and wombs, so many raised shoulders and backs up, frustrating and blocking and damming love's way. Rumi is famously quoted for challenging humanity with this charge. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Let love through. Stand open on that shore. Let yourself be washed by the waves. It's in the body. Ubuntu. But more and more as time goes on, we humans have been managing people the same way we've been managing the rest of the world. Poorly and on our own terms, with a bias towards what's in it for us individually, rather than whether and how it serves the common good. As Christian Westerners in particular, even when we're trying to help others, we tend to choose arm's-length charity projects over becoming inextricably woven. Commitments into the long-term mutual collaborations, commitments to ongoing relationships of mutual empowerment. Unlike oak trees, we like to think, 1, that we don't need saving, and 2, that we know what's best. We convince ourselves that we can, from our privileged position, take an objective, wide view, discern and decide independently which way forward is best, most worthy, useful, and fair. We ask, what's an efficient use of my gifts, resources, and money? And what projects and people are worthy recipients? Rather than, how am I or might I be a gift to the commons? What role do I serve in my wider community's collective empowerment? Our culture is prone to the habit of rushing in to save the day and make right without fully taking stock of what's going wrong and how we might be implicated in creating the problem in the first place. If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. I mentioned last week that I'm a gardener with homesteading aspirations. I'm the great-granddaughter of a farmer. My mom grew up in the Caribbean on a family plantation in the mountainous rainforest. She and her extended family, including aunts, uncles, and cousins, lived off the land. They didn't have much money, But under Daddy Goozy's savvy agricultural leadership, they built and maintained their homes and made a good life. Whatever they couldn't grow, raise, or produce on their own, they traded for. Rural life was not for my mom, and though she has an undeniable green thumb, she left the countryside as soon as she could, ultimately settling in Toronto, where she married my dad and had me. Growing up in Canada, straddling a number of intersectional oppressions, I've come to the hard-earned realization that I will never truly be well, full, and liberated unless I find a way to interweave my roots with other oak trees like me. I know we need to create a good and common life, build safe, affordable homes, grow healthy, life-giving food, give back, and hold fast to our land and her people sustainably with the ethical grace Heather spoke of yesterday. Sankofa is a word in the Twi language of Ghana. It means to retrieve, to go back and reclaim. The story of Sankofa is based on the African proverb, "It is not taboo to go back and fetch that which you have forgotten," meaning that you can't know where you are going unless you know where you came from. Though I feel my life depends on it, it's been extremely hard for me to find ways to move gracefully towards my calling. I feel I'm just scratching the surface of understanding how to decolonize myself, my life, before it's too late. But here's some of what I do know. What is now known as southwestern Ontario is part of the lands subject to the dish with one spoon wampum belt covenant. One dish, one spoon, no knives. Pope Nicholas granted Christian nations the authority to loot and enslave non-Christian nations, saying, "Invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans, take their possessions, and reduce their persons to perpetual slavery." This decree justified European settlers in their genocide against indigenous people. It also set the stage for the transatlantic slave trade. When Black people were first stolen from Africa and brought to North America as forced unpaid labor, it was for their farming expertise. Subsequently, Black settlers arrived in Nova Scotia in three main groups: the Loyalists of the 1780s, the Maroons in 1796, and the refugees of the War of 1812. They arrived under the pretense of offers of generous land grants from the British government. But while their white counterparts were typically given deeds to at least 100 acres of fertile land, Black families were given 10-acre lots of poor quality land without legal title. They could not sell, mortgage, or legally pass that land down to their ancestors. So while Black farmers have a long history in Canada going back as far as the 1700s, Black-owned farms are disproportionately rare. I know of only 3 in southwestern Ontario. A 2020 proof analysis of Stats Canada DATS from 2017 to 2018 found that Black communities are 3.5 times more likely to experience food insecurity compared to white Canadians. 28.2% of Indigenous and 28.9% of Black households are food insecure. In higher income Canadian neighborhoods where families are most likely to be homeowners, 74% of families are white. But in lower income neighborhoods where families are more likely to rent, 69% of residents are racialized. Families who own land or homes are able to pass down equity, while children of families who don't can only expect to inherit rising costs. One dish, one spoon, no knives. For just as the body is one and has many members, so it is with Christ. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I have no need of you," nor again the head to the feet. If one member suffers, all suffer together. And if one member is honored, all rejoice. We know this, and it makes us very uncomfortable. The idea of being inextricably bound up with each other like oak trees. What is it about this that makes us so uncomfortable? My friend Scott Richmond has an interesting take. He argues that our discomfort is with our dependence on others, particularly on those we don't know or understand, because our interdependence, argues Scott, is an affirmation of our own radical insufficiency to ourselves. We like to think we've got this on our own, alone or in our small families or small congregations or clubs of alliance. We build fences, draw borders, stockpile, write treaties, then dishonor them, issue decrees, write property laws, like aberrant little ladybugs. But ultimately, when we act outside the interest of our common good, life keeps calling us back, insistently. So where do we go from here? Indigenous elders often petition for help achieving their goals in a good and humble way. Heed this wisdom. Seek a good and humble way. Connect with people continuing good traditions of non-hierarchical community building. Learn from them. Join them. Watch out for your neighbor's kids. Ask how you might help out a single or not single struggling parent. Offer to give someone without a vehicle a ride to get groceries. Do you have or have access to land or property that folks could make good use of, or connections to people or organizations that do? Could you facilitate folks connecting with land linking orgs, like those for BIPOC growers looking for space to grow in? Have fruit trees that have a bounty that's going to waste? Call not far from the tree and arrange to have that produce harvested and shared. It's not too late to engage your local candidates, re where they stand on policies for the common good. Are they committed to universal basic income and UNDRIP, preserving agricultural land, green belts, conservation areas, affordable cooperative housing, cooperative farming initiatives, public health care, community long-term care? And are their policies and commitments on these issues transparently laid out in their platform? Check their professional history. Does it match what they're professing on the campaign trail? Does it champion the common good? If they've had a political career previously, what's their track record and their voting history? Wear your convictions on your sleeve. Post a sign or symbol or wear a pin that lets people know you're an ally committed to the work and they can come to you for help. Here's redemption. Love remembers. We are not alone. Trust that and sit with that discomfort. I would offer that as people of faith, we are charged not only to sit with that discomfort, but to bear it, like labor pains when water breaks. We can give ourselves over to the common good. We can, as Scott says, open ourselves to coming undone. Lose sight of ourselves when we encounter an idea or someone or something we don't understand. We can give back to our messy, entangled, collective empowerment. All creation, every beetle, pill bug, and hoverfly, every microbe and blade of grass, every person, inextricably woven pieces of God's light, necessary fragments of embodied love. Gaze softens or eyes gently close as you are comfortable. Let your breath breathe you as, in closing, we consider this question. What if God has no agency without us? No hands, feet, or throat but our own. If God is not whole without us, if the common good is not done without us, then we have a lot of work to do. Ashe and Amen.
Thank you so much, Niki. So looking forward to hearing your message this morning. I'm sorry, early this afternoon. You have left us with a good question, and hopefully folks will take it back and ponder it in their heart. We are so grateful for your presence, Niki. I hope you're still there, and for helping us to prepare for our time together this afternoon. Ubuntu. Amen.